got that in here. Yeah, this is all we need for right now. Okay. So, like I said, I need your side conversations to stop. If you are interrupting my review session, I will just ask you to leave class. Alright, Jade is recording this, so that way I can put this video online for you, so that way you can have access to this review session when you get home. Maybe you need to hear it one more time. I'm also doing this since a couple of people are going to miss my third period that are playing basketball, so I want to make sure they have access to this as well. Okay, so looking at the side that says timeline, we have historical events, documents, and people who influenced our government. This is from chapters 1 and 2. Call out some names of events, documents, or people that influenced our government. Jojo.
Montesquieu.
Montesquieu, and what idea did he have?
Separation of power.
I'm going to use a lot of abbreviations. So Montesquieu, separation of powers. Essence, who else?
I was about to say Thomas Hobbes.
Hobbes, what was he about?
Having
Natural rights.
Natural rights. Who else? Shrita.
Your best friend.
My BFF, who was that?
John.
Yes, Waleed, you are my BFF. In addition to Locke, since that's who you were assigned for your Facebook project. All right, this is also natural rights guy. Shavana. Declaration of, we'll hold that. Table that. So, the reason why I am telling her to table that is because right now we are talking about historical events, documents, and people who influenced our government. We took all of those ideas in the Declaration of Independence from people like this. So you're thinking before this time period. All right, what else happened before our Declaration of Independence? Things that influenced our government. Remember chapters 1 and chapter 2. Essence? Adams is going to shape our government. Who else? Hello?
I have like a question.
Uh-huh.
You know, like the first test we took, it's like the chronological order part. Is that included in this part?
So the timeline is not specifically included. However, I will ask you questions from that timeline. So thinking about that, because that put in order all of the things that influenced our government, what were some things, events, or people that were on that timeline? Do you remember one of the things on the timeline? No. Kelsey? American Revolution was one of the things on the timeline. Ariana?
No, I had a question about why you got little dashes next to the name?
Same thing as Hobbes. Just repeat. Hello?
Wasn't there something about like Rome and direct democracy?
Rome. And what other city or country? Athens, Greece. All right, but which is which? Rome, we took their idea of what? Republic? Hold on. Republic, which is a form of representative government. I'm saying the same thing that I'm writing on the board, so if you can't see, listen. Republic, representative government for Rome. And then, so Athens, what idea do we steal from Athens? Sharita? A specific form of democracy. One more time, louder. Direct democracy. Okay, so these are some of the ideas that you should have in that first box where it says historical events, documents, people who influenced our government. One other thing you're leaving out, and I'm guessing we probably won't get it, but this is the name of a very famous rapper's album that you guys right? Oh! Magna Carta. No, I don't want to know what Jay-Z did to influence our government. I want to know what this Magna Carta, this document, did to influence our government. Created charters. Why is that important?
Created charters.
Created the rule of law using a document. Before this, your kings, your queens would have decided what each government would do. now we have a government that is going to be formally written down on paper. So that's the Magna Carta that's going to influence it. It is the first historical document to create the rule of law, written down, in stone. Well, paper, parchment paper, most likely. But, all right, then chapter 3, the second box here, we have what happened leading up to the to independence. That is to say, why were the colonists justified to seek independence? So now you need to think back to chapter 3 and your DBQ. I just want you to think of reasons why they separated from England. Kelsey?
Taxation without representation.
Yes, we have taxation without representation. What else do we have? Hello?
Was it one quartering soldiers, like who's entering their houses?
Quartering soldiers. I'm going to put quartering/housing. You should know what that means. Housing soldiers. Jojo.
The Boston Massacre.
Boston Massacre. Why was this a problem?
They were shooting.
Yep, and if they didn't have a standing army during a time of peace, this would have never happened. Standing army during peace. All right, other events, people, things that happen, reasons. What about the trial?
The king was violating the documents. I forgot the document.
So I'm going to back up. Tahira just mentioned something about trials. They end at jury trials. And then what Jojo is referring to, how he violated the Bill of Rights. So King violated the Bill of Rights. All right, what else, Sharita?
Was this during the Enlightenment or was it after?
So it's just at the end of the Enlightenment. They are all fully enlightened now. They are brilliant. They realize that you should have rights. Anything other reasons? One last one, cutting off trade.
What you mean in the
Right, cutting off trade there. So those are all things we should have written in the second box. Crystal?
What's in the jury trial?
They ended jury trials. The king said that if you are going to be tried for any crime within the colonies, you're going to be sent back to England to be tried there. Which is A, unrealistic because logistically you got to travel 3,000 miles. B, you are no longer receiving a jury of your peers. All right. Third box, chapter 3 still. Finally, when the colonists have had enough of the British Empire, we need to fix these years. Sorry, the one got cut off when I was making copies. So it's 1776, 1777, 1788, and 1791. You're just adding a 1 in front of each of those numbers. So 1, the colonists have had enough, so they declare freedom. What is the name of that document that declared their freedom? Crystal? Declaration of Independence. I'm shortening it. You should write it out. Declaration of Independence. Yeah. 2. All right, we're free. Now we need our own government. So they set up this initial government. What's the name of that document? Hello?
Is it the Virginia plan?
No. Kelsey? Articles of Confederation.
I thought that was our first government.
Articles of Confederation was our first government. Are you saying you thought the Declaration of Independence was our first government? All right, then 3. Oopsie, that didn't work. All right, we tried again to set up our government. And what do they write? The Constitution. And then, oh shucks, those anti-federalists won't ratify or accept the government. They want what, Ariana? Bill of Rights. Okay. So on your test, you need to know first what each of these documents are about. Second, you need to know the order of these documents, what came first. Third, you need to know why they scrapped the Articles of Confederation and wrote the Constitution. So what are those problems that they found with the Articles of Confederation? We'll talk about that a little later. No, you don't need to know the year. You just need to know the order in which they come. So,
That's the order?
yes. Then, Constitutional Convention. So before we ratify the Constitution, they have this Constitutional Convention held here in Philadelphia. Who was leading the charge? I gave you the first name. James Madison. Beautiful. Fill in Madison there. James Madison led the charge. He is the father of the Constitution, not Thomas Jefferson. Okay, as much as I love him, it was not TJ. Okay. Issues discussed. Now here's where we get a little bit hairy, all right? I saw a lot of people miss these questions. Just being questioned before I answer this one? Or you want to answer that question?
Isn't it about the houses and all that stuff?
The bicameral?
Yes.
The Virginia plan is bicameral.
Virginia plan is bicameral, which means no, not two representatives. Two houses. Bicameral means two houses. So Virginia plan wants to have two legislative bodies. And they want those bodies to be based on population. All right, because remember, Virginia is a larger state. They want to have a larger voice in this government since there are more people living there. That makes sense to them. But New Jersey comes along and says, oh, no you don't. What's New Jersey's plan? So unicameral
That means one?
or one house. Now, how are they going to decide how many people are in that house?
Based on population.
No.
No.
Which one is bigger?
Why wouldn't it be based on population?
Because if you got a place like Virginia against New Jersey, of course Virginia will have a bigger population. That means they got more representatives.
Beautiful. She really knows this stuff. All right. So, New Jersey's resolution to this? New Jersey's resolution for this is to have one house with a set number. This number won't change. So let's say every state gets 5 representatives or 2 representatives. They don't really care how many representatives they choose. All right, what they do care about, though, is that New Jersey's voice is equal to Virginia's voice, or smaller states like Connecticut, New Hampshire. They want to make sure their voices are equal to those like Virginia. They don't want them to outweigh them. All right, then we have this great compromise that blended these two plans, and it is what our government looks like today. What did the great compromise decide?
There are two houses, that's bicameral legislature.
2 houses, and how is the representation going to be determined?
The Senate has 2 senators from each state.
And then the House?
3,000 for one.
One for every 30,000 people? I don't care if you know that nitty-gritty rule. In fact, it has actually changed since then. But what I do care that you know is that it changes based on population. Number changes based on population.
So what's the difference between that and
So what's the difference between the Virginia plan and New Jersey plan and the Great Compromise? So the Great Compromise took one element from each of those plans. All right, New Jersey wanted to have one legislative body that had a set number of representatives. All right, they did that. They included that in the compromise to make New Jersey happy. Virginia wanted to make sure one of those legislative bodies is going to be based on the size of the population. All right, and they included that in the Great Compromise. Does that make sense? We took a little bit from each plan. Okay, 3/5 compromise is dealing with slavery. Oh, I'm running out of room.
You only get a certain amount of extended fingers.
All right, 3/5 compromise is all about slavery. And that means that slaves are going to count as 3/5 of a person. What's wrong with that? Khalil? Yes, and Raheem? Say what you said again.
It contradicts the equality.
Contradicts our very founding ideal of equality. Yes. All right, so that is a major issue. But why did Virginia want to make sure that their slaves were counted?
Because they have the most.
Because they have the most slaves. All right, but another reason, if they have slaves, that increases their population, that increases more representatives in their legislative body, correct? All right, so that increases their voice. But the smaller states, especially the non-slave states, wanted to make sure that they didn't get credit for all of that, and this is their compromise. But a messed up compromise it is. All right, so Federalists and Anti-Federalists is something I need to make sure that we get straight. For some reason, we still missed a lot of these questions. All right, so Federalists, listen to what I say and write it down. I'm not going to write this on the board. You have Federalists like Hamilton, Madison, and Jay. All right, what do the Federalists want? Josephine?
Constitution.
They want the Constitution. So please write, support it, the Constitution. What are they going to use to convince the Anti-Federalists to ratify the Constitution? Essence? The Federalist Papers. So work to gain support through Federalist Papers. Yes, they wrote, basically, news articles is what you would think of today, but essays and pamphlets they published in the news. Federalist Papers, it is in your study guide as well. Yes, you're correct.
Wait, that's where you go to work?
Yes, Federalist. They gain support through the Federalist Papers, essays and pamphlets. All right, Anti-Federalists, like Sam Adams, Patrick Henry. What's their problem? Why are they not agreeing to this Constitution? Try. They want the Bill of Rights. Other reasons. So we're going to write 1. They wanted a Bill of Rights to ensure individual protections. 2.
They didn't think they thought the Constitution would overpower,
Overpower what?
a national.
It's a small state.
They didn't want,
No.
they didn't want one branch to get too powerful.
They didn't want one branch to be too powerful, but they're trying to protect states' rights and citizens' rights. All right, they're going to protect the citizens' rights through the Bill of Rights, but they still have this fear of a strong national government that will override the states' rights. All right, so it's 2-part. So Anti-Federalists, your mnemonic device for this. Remember, anti, what does anti mean?
Against.
Against. Both start with an A. Also, remember that the Anti-Federalists against the Constitution are afraid of this strong national government. All A words. Okay. Then on the back side, I see some people are still writing, so I'll slow down. Bill of Rights, and they were afraid of a strong national government that could overpower the states. On this page, I would like for you to have a highlighter or a colored pen, or you're going to be underlining.
On the back. You said we need to highlight. On the side. Apologize.
Don't apologize.
All right, so you have the Constitution, 6 guiding principles. We have 1, popular sovereignty. 2, rule of law. 3, separation of powers and checks and balances. 4, federalism. 5, independent judiciary. And 6, individual rights. All of these things are listed here. What I want you to highlight is the definition. Here, I use a different color then for the definition. All right, so popular sovereignty, please highlight. That refers to the people. Highlight people. 2, rule of law. Please highlight or underline system of laws. 4, separation of powers and checks and balances. Please highlight 3 branches that have power over one another. Federalism, my favorite principle. It's the who's your daddy principle. I did not include a lot of those. I will explain that when I get into reviewing your packet. All right, so federalism. We talked about this with the court cases. All right, it's the who's your daddy court cases that we use this reference for. But federalism's still going to use the term who's your daddy because it means the federal government is the supreme power. So highlight that, please. Who's your daddy? Federal government is supreme power. You see I have a diagram there that shows you it goes from federal at the top, because they have the highest power, to state in the middle, they have the next highest power, and then local government. In parentheses, I provided you the federal government is equal to the daddy, the state government is equal to the child, and the local government is equal to the grandchild. All right, daddy, of course, tells the child what to do. That's not open for debate about what happens in your house. That's not open for debate for what happens in your house. All right, independent judiciary.
No, one time. That's you. Does the state tell the local what to do?
Yes.
Also, I put arrows next to it.
Yeah. Independent judiciary. Highlight, please, non-political judges that are nominated for life. This is only the federal judges. They wanted to make sure that federal judges would be insulated from political influences. They don't want them running for office because then they're more likely to side in favor of someone who agrees with their interests or someone who they might be trying to sway. All right, individual rights. Please highlight, see the Bill of Rights. For the middle box, interpreting the Constitution, please highlight. That's the job of the Supreme Court. The court cases from Section 4.5 are not on the midterm. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Court cases from 4.5 are not on your midterm. Marbury versus Madison, Maryland versus McCullough, Nixon versus United States. You are welcome. All right, one thing. Goes versus Lopez is on the test, but it is on the test for the purpose of identifying a Fifth Amendment case. Okay, Goes versus Lopez deals with the due process rights of students, so that falls under the Fifth Amendment. All right, the Bill of Rights. You need to know the first, second, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh,
Not
and
the
eighth
third, though?
amendments. I know, I'm sorry. Nor the ninth.
Yeah.
If you have two different colors, if you have two different colors, Khalil, stop talking. I want you to highlight these two in different colors, civil liberties and civil rights. Civil liberties are those things that are considered birthright to all individuals. So freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, those are God-given, not government-given. So highlight that in one color. And then civil rights, highlight that in another color. It guarantees the government of equal rights and fair treatment under the law. So these are things that are granted by the government. Terms to know. I talked about this a little bit on Friday. All right, but these are other terms that you need to know. Incorporation applies the Bill of Rights to states. We have libel and slander. Both things are not allowed. All right, yes, you have the right to free speech. However, you do not have the right to spread false information knowingly, knowing that it is false, knowing that it is wrong. You may not spread that kind of information. Josephine.
I was just saying if a girl said that a guy raped her, like...
And she completely made it up.
No, but what if she don't want to testify? Does it still count?
Yes and no. That would be a very gray area that the judges would have to be very careful when weighing that decision. Those cases are most often not brought into court. Because either way, if you're suing him for, or if they're suing you for defamation of character, they're kind of forcing you to testify, at which point you're already testifying in his case. You might as well testify in your own. All right, so incorporation, sure. Remember, after the Civil War, we have a problem. We freed the slaves, but we need another law that makes them citizens of the United States and provides them equal protection under the law. So that's the 14th Amendment that has this equal protection clause. The Bill of Rights were written 100 years before. All right? Before the Civil War, before the 14th Amendment, the Bill of Rights was only applied at the federal level. So that meant only if you committed federal offenses could they grant you a right to a trial by jury. Most states would honor that also, but the Bill of Rights only applied at the federal level. They couldn't force the states to apply it until after this 14th Amendment. Then they can force the states to make sure the state provides freedom of speech and doesn't infringe upon that right, to make sure that they have the right to a jury trial under the Sixth Amendment, or right to a counsel under the Sixth Amendment. That is now required because everybody deserves equal protection under the law, whether it's federal or state. They thought it was kind of silly to separate the application of the Bill of Rights between the two levels of government. Okay, so for incorporation though, one amendment that is not incorporated, please write this down next to incorporation. The Second Amendment is not incorporated. What is the Second Amendment?
Right to bear arms.
Right to bear arms. All right, why is it? Different states have different rules. This is almost always the easiest one for students to remember. All right, you know that different states have different gun laws. We've talked a little bit about this. Connecticut and Massachusetts and New York have very strict gun laws. Massachusetts has some of the most strict gun laws in the country. All right, but states like Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, not as tight of restrictions on gun laws. All right, the Bill of Rights and the federal government have decided, and the Supreme Court have decided that this is one amendment they have chosen not to incorporate at the state level. The Supreme Court could change this at some time, but for now and for a very long time until they get rid of the NRA, they're not going to be able to
What's
touch
the NRA?
this. NRA, National Rifle Association. Or there are some other fun acronyms for it that I won't share with you. It's typically driven by the Republican Party. All right? They have a lot of money. They have a lot of political backing. And there's just not many ways to defeat them right now. Yeah, Essence?
Oh, what happened because where they live at, there's a lot of open lands on hush cats, and they need guns.
Right, and so that's kind of the theory behind this, Khalil, is that they need to ensure that people have access to these weapons. So that way, it's their livelihood. It's how they provide food for their families. I mean, I have cousins in Indiana that all they do is eat deer meat all year. And they rely on just being able to kill enough deer within that short hunting season to last them all year. They live off of that. You can freeze it, you can make it into so many other things, and a lot of dishes it tastes just like beef. All right, it's not that good.
You had it?
There is a certain deer season. Yes, I have had it. All right, other questions about what I just went over? All right, you can stop it now. Thank you.